Lance Meadow with you here on GoColumbiaLions.com as we gear up for Columbia's final home game of the regular season. They will host the Brown Bears on Senior Day. And as always, I'm now joined by interim head coach Mark Fabish. Coach, let's start with the last game against Harvard. Unfortunately, the second straight game where you fell down early by double digits, a little bit quicker against Harvard versus Yale. You never obviously want to start off slow. But what do you do now to combat that continuing trend-wise here moving forward against Brown?
I mean, continue to talk to the team just about controlling what we can control, doing our jobs, focus on execution internally as opposed to not necessarily what our opponent is doing. And it starts there. It just starts with everyone doing their job, not trying to do more than what's asked of them. And then us as coaches, putting the guys in positions to find success early. It's not something that we weren't trying to do both against Yale and against Harvard, but really just trying to return to a place of focus of just doing what's asked of you to the best of our ability and then on to the next moment. And so while we did fall behind, it was neat to see our guys battle back and continue to play for all 60 minutes. With that, that focus and with that ability to just execute what's being asked of you.
It was also the second game in the last 3 weeks. Unfortunately, that punt was blocked for a touchdown. When you go back and you review that and you speak to the team, how much of an emphasis is, hey, the rest of the league is watching this, we've got to clean this up, or else they're going to look to attack us the same way the following week?
No doubt about it. And the answer to that is the answer to the first question as well. It's just everyone's got to do what's asked of them. No more, but you can't do less. You have to execute your assignment, regardless of whether it's special teams, offense, defense. And those two plays in particular, the punt against Dartmouth, the punt against Harvard, unfortunately were magnified because not only was it a block punt, but that it led to points on that play. It wasn't like it created a short field or anything like that. Both were scooping scores and ended up in points for the other team. But just like when you play a defense and they show a vulnerability with a coverage, or you play an offense and you say, well, that offensive lineman is someone that we can attack, that opponent is going to do everything they can in that week to shore up what is a perceived weakness. And the thing about it is I do think that that's a perception. I've got all the confidence in the world in our guys and in our staff to get us to a point where all we're doing is what's asked of us, and that any loose ends certainly get tied up, and that we're prepared for Brown trying to exploit, like I said, what might be a perceived weakness in a protection scheme or anything like that. We just got to do our jobs.
Looking back at the game, it's easy to pinpoint that as a big turning point, though. I would look at another development in the game, Mark, and I'm curious your perspective. Joey Georgie has a heck of a run up the left sideline. You cut the deficit at 17-7. You get on the board for the first time. Then Harvard goes 5 plays, 70 yards, and scores a touchdown with Shane McLaughlin. How much of Harvard responding consistently to what you did really impacted and changed the flow of the game?
Gosh, you're bringing it today, Lance, huh? Holy mackerel, yeah.
My apologies.
That's okay. That's okay. It happened. We can't pretend that it didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, and I don't necessarily believe in momentum as a thing. Each play is its own separate entity, and I know that we've talked about that, and each drive is its own separate entity. But at the same time, I was excited to see our response to being down 17-0. And that was a 10-play, 75-yard drive. And Joey having that big run, but also a 4th down pass from Joe Green to J.Dell Jenkins. And then, we kick off and Harvard goes on a march. And I'm not going to say they took our momentum away, but it definitely was disheartening that we weren't able to build off of what we had done on our previous drive. And then I think we threw an interception on our next possession. And so it went from 17-7, let's go, we're in this, to 24-7, we turned the ball over, and Harvard was able to, I think, run out the clock from there. But you know, it is what it is. We came back our first drive in the second half and went on. You know, I think we held the ball for 10 plus minutes and got down and came away with points. And so we found a way to kind of whatever momentum that Harvard was able to generate, we got to half and we went to work. And really that's all that we can do is when we have the ball on offense is do the best we can, and when we go on defense, do what we can to get the ball back for our offense.
On the topic of encouraging signs, you look at the last 2 games. You played to the finish against Yale. You got that late touchdown to Jake Larson, and then you look at what happened against Harvard, 2 late touchdowns. How much does that indicate to you what this team's fight is all about? And how the fact that no matter how the flow of the game is played out, that's never been something that you and the coaching staff have had to question?
I mean, that's who we are. You know, unfortunately, our record is what it is at this point. But our guys play. They play for 60 minutes, and we talked about playing for 60 minutes or however long it takes. If a game ever goes to overtime, it doesn't mean we're not going to play hard. So it's 60 minutes or however long it takes, and that's what we're going to continue to do. We get to play this week. We get to play next week, and we're going to take advantage of that opportunity. These guys get 40 in their careers, and so regardless of what our role is, let's take advantage of each and every one. Let's enjoy the practice week. Let's enjoy pre-game. Let's enjoy the time from 12:30 to 3:30 every Saturday, where we line up against a different color jersey and get to see what we're all about. I think that's the measure of any team, and there's a lot of stuff that comes up week to week for us in here that's different, but I think regardless of our opponent, after the 8 games that we've played, that's the one thing that's been the same, is that the 2023 Columbia football team plays hard and plays for the entire clock, and they play for each other, and the credit doesn't matter, and you know, we're always looking to improve from one week to the next.
So up next is Brown. Last week you played the #1 rushing offense in the Ivy League. This week you get the #1 passing offense in the Ivy League. I know, it's never a week off. No salt being poured in the wounds, just sticking to the facts, at least I'm attempting to within this conversation. What does Brown's passing game stress-wise put on a defense?
Everything. I mean, they are so well coached. Coach Perry does a phenomenal job scheme-wise. There's a confidence that their kids play with, and it starts with the trigger man. Number 3, Wilcox. I mean, he has a trust and a belief in his receivers, and they do a great job, whether they're open or they're covered. They find ways to come down with the ball. They run game feeds off of their pass game, and you know, it's incumbent upon us on defense to slow them down and do what we can to get the ball back for our offense as often as possible. But they're good, they're formidable, and like you said, the stats are the stats. We're not making them up. They're throwing for over 300 a game, and they're scoring a bunch of points, playing with a ton of confidence. They beat two of the top teams in our league so far this year, in Penn and Princeton, and did it by playing complete football, you know, playing on all 3 facets. And so it's not just the stress on the defense. The offense we got to hold up our end of the bargain there, and on our special teams units, we got to set the table for both sides of the ball as well.
I'm glad you brought up the offense, because we've been talking about this all season, about the need to put more points on the board, and you wound up scoring more points in the last game than you did in the previous 2 combined. What's the conversation like with Joe Green and company, specifically this week, and their level of excitement that there is a bit of an onus on them this week to match wits with one of the high-octane offenses in the league?
Let's go. Like, let's go. Spot the ball and let's play. You know, build off of what we did. However many points or yards, it's an awesome opportunity to play on Senior Day, to honor a group that has given so much to this program, and to really take another step forward. Regardless of how many opportunities we have left, just always constant forward motion. Just keep going forward. You know, right? Ted Lasso said it at the end of season 1, onward, forward. Let's go.
Absolutely. See, we always try to mix in as many references as possible in terms of this conversation. You brought up Senior Day. And
I thought we were going to end with Ted Lasso.
Well, I wanted to squeeze in one more. I'm sorry to interrupt the flow. You know, we're still working out a little bit of the chemistry here as we get into the latter part of the season. Forgive me on that front. This is a unique Senior Day.
Sure.
Because this group, and you know this group well, a lot of people tend to forget, their first year was in the heart of the pandemic, when we did not have a football season. When you look back to see how it started for them, what they went through, how you and the coaching staff had to navigate the technology in a year which was unlike anything else we've seen, what do you think back of in terms of how battle-tested this group is, essentially?
Just, they're resilient. Their resiliency is something that has shown up not only on the field, on the 30 games, or shoot, now to this point 28 games that they've had the opportunity to play, but I think it's going to be something that they carry with them for the rest of their lives. You know, they have had to endure quite a bit, and they're coming out on the back of this thing battle tested and ready. You know, and hopefully some of them will continue to play and have some more than just the 30 that have been afforded to them, the opportunities to line up against a different color jersey. But regardless of whether it's another season of football or the real world or graduate school, they're going to be ready. And that's something that, you know, I think is worth its weight in gold.
Sounds good. It is Columbia against Brown on Senior Day, Coach. Always appreciate the conversation, and I see the shaving has been maintained. There's no movement back.
I'm not growing my Ted Lasso mustache.
That's
we're good.
That's how it is. I like it. I support the philosophy. Always a pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck this weekend.
Appreciate it.
So Columbia hosts Brown on Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. I will have the call with Sean Fitzgerald. You can watch on SNY as well as on ESPN+.